lived during the Vedavyasa himself. So, the story of the Vishishtadvaita interpretation, the Vishishtadvaiti interpretation of the Brahma Sutras begins with Vedavyasa teaching the Brahma Sutras, and based on his teachings, his contemporary Bodhayana Maharshi composing a commentary. So we looked at that. Bhagavad Ramanuja himself says at the start of the Sri Bhashya, which we saw, right? Bhagavad Bodhayana Kritam Vistirnam Brahmasutra Vrittim Purvacharyaha Sanchikshipuhu Tanmatanusarena Sutraksharani Vyakhyasyante. So the Purvacharyas, the Acharyas who came after Bodhayana Maharshi, but before the time of Bhagavad Ramanuja, they had condensed the teachings of Bhagavad Bodhayana, who is mentioned in scriptures like Mahabharata, and whose Sulba Sutras are famous for calculating the square root of 2, circling the square, and other such things. While he is famous for concepts like mathematics, geometry, and so on, in reality, he was a master of Purva Mimamsa as well as Uttara Mimamsa as well. So, when you look at Bodhayana Maharshi, he was a very great sage. We have seen further details about what all he has composed in the previous classes. Long back we have seen. We are not going to revisit it. But let us keep in mind that such a great Rishi had presented a commentary. But over a period of time, Bodhayana Maharshi, Vedavyasa, what is their timeline? The timeline of Mahabharata. That was thousands of years before the time of Bhagavad Ramanuja. So by the time of Bhagavad Ramanuja, the commentary of Bodhayana Maharshi was available only as a single copy. Only a single copy of it was available, that too in Kashmir. This not only implies difficulty of access, but also a reduction of popularity. So, one of the many responsibilities of the avatara of Adishesha was to revive and spread the teachings of Bodhayana Maharshi. Which is what he has indeed done. Tanmatanusarena, as per that school of philosophy, which was taught by Bodhayana Maharshi, let us comment on the letters of the Brahma Sutra. Sutraksharani. Why letters? Why not words? Words have meaning. Do letters also have meaning? Yes. Why do some letters come before the other? Why do some letters exist? How to treat them? To that level of depth, an analysis was done. You might not find in Sri Bhashya explanation like, okay, in Atato Brahma Jignasa, this is what a means, this is what ta means. You are not going to find that. But wherever necessary, he would go to the level of depth of individual letters as well. Inside Athato Brahma Jignasa, if you go and split letter by letter, it will not make sense. But wherever you should split, you have to split. Atrayam atha shabda anantarye bhavati. Atha to he is splitting. Atha shabda. After that there is ataha, which means therefore. Then there is Brahma Jignasa. Atha shabdo vrittasya hetu bhave adhita sangasa shiraskavedasya. He goes on explaining. He says, look, anantarya implies that the Brahma Sutras begin after something else. Thus, therefore, okay. But how could the very first sutra begin after something else? This implies that those who are studying it, those who are studying the Vedanta Sutras, the Brahma Sutras, they should have previously studied something else. What is that something else? He is explaining that. Bhagavad Ramanuja explains very beautifully in a single sentence. What is that? He says, Adhita Sangasa Shiraska Vedasya. One who has studied the Vedas formally is called Adhita Veda. Adhita Sangha Veda is a person who has studied the Vedas formally along with all the 6 angas of the Veda. Adhita Sangasa Shiraska Veda is a person who has studied the entirety of the Vedas and all the Vedangas. Remember, when we say Vedanga, studying the Vedangas, the 6 Vedangas does not imply finishing the Veda. Vedangas are different at the end of the day. Right? It is not like my body is made up of hands, feet, face, and so on. So if you fix all of them together, if you add hands, feet, the torso, the head, and so on, would you immediately get my entire body? Maybe you would. But that is not how the Veda is made. The Veda is not made of these Vedangas. Vedanga here is a technical term. So the Veda has to be learned. Vedangas should also be learned. Then Sa Shiraska. What is that? Veda that is there along with its Shiras, along with the head. We saw Shruti Shirasi Vidipte Brahmani Srinivase there. What does Shruti Shiras mean? It means Upanishad. Shiras means head. The head of the Veda is the Upanishad. Many people, unfortunately, refuse to value the head itself. They would study all the remaining part. A person who skips the Upanishads and studies only the Karma Kanda, what would such a person be able to do? He would be able to perform all the rituals, sacrifices, everything. But he would not be able to understand the concept of Paramatma. He would not be able to understand the philosophy or the theology that is presented by the Vedas. For him to understand this, it is necessary to study the Upanishads. So, Sa Shiraska Veda, Veda that is studied along with the Upanishads, which are part of the Veda itself. Upanishads are not separate. Adhita Sangasa Shiraska Vedasya, Adhigata Alpa Sthiraphala Kevala Karma Jnanataya. Now, he goes on. As you study the scriptures, you, through your own life, as well as your training, you are observing what is happening around. What is it that you observe? You observe that there is a fundamental issue with the karma system. What kind of issue exists with the karma system? The karma system is supposed to be logical, fair, and everything. All of that is perfect. But there is one issue. The issue is that whatever you get is always proportional to what you do. You cannot do infinite things, and therefore you cannot get an infinite result. Be it in terms of time or be it in terms of magnitude, whatever karma phala you get would also be limited. If I make somebody happy, the karma phala that I get would be the equivalent of making me happy, somebody making me happy, right? What goes around comes around. If I make some poor person eat for a day, in the next janma, I am born as a beggar for some other sin that I have committed. But due to this punya of feeding the poor, when I am in need of food, I would get food donated by somebody. Somebody will come and donate to me. I would be able to eat in spite of being a beggar, right? But for how many days? If my punya was just enough to feed a beggar for one day, then in my next life, if I am a beggar and that karma phala is returning to me in the exact same form of food, for how many days will it feed me? It will feed me for only one day. I cannot expect to feed a beggar for one day and expect its result to last for a lifetime. So, this is not a fault with the system of karma, but it implies something. It implies alpatva, that there is a very, very big limitation on the karma phala that we get. Okay. What else? Asthiratva. Asthiratva means it is not permanent. What is not permanent? The result that we get is not permanent. It does not last forever. So the result that we get is limited. I don't get infinite food for a day. And I don't get it every day either. Ideally, how would I want my life to be? I would want myself to be able to get everything that I want. I would want a life that is full of happiness. Am I able to get that? I am not able to get that. So, the person who has studied the Vedas along with their angas and along with its head, which is the Upanishad, that person understands that karma gives only limited result, that too for a limited period of time. Even if he has not learned it through his life, through his experience, through logical reasoning, through the study of Veda, he will understand that much. Therefore, adhigata alpasthira phala kevala karma jnanataya sanjata moksha abhilashasya, that person becomes sanjata moksha abhilasha, implying that person becomes desirous of moksha. Why? Because it is in the state of moksha that you have permanent bliss, permanent freedom from problems. How would it be? It would be ananta sthira phala. Ananta, endless, and sthira, constant, forever. That is how it would be. Okay. Is there anything that is infinite and eternal? For the person who has studied the Veda, the answer would be no. Yes, there is something that is infinite and eternal. What is that? That is Brahman. Which Brahman? Parabrahman. So, I seek something that is eternal, well established, and endless. And because I have studied the Veda, I know that yes, there is indeed something like that. Ananta sthira phala Brahma Jignasa. So, he understands that yes, it is indeed possible to get an Ananta sthira phala, endless quantity of eternal bliss by attaining Parabrahman. Therefore, that Parabrahman who is already having this quality, a person who has studied the Vedas along with the Upanishads and the Angas, would develop the curiosity to learn more and more about this Brahman. This would be natural for the person who has studied the Vedas. We are not saying that people who have not studied the Vedas will not have Brahma Jignasa. They might also have. But the person who has studied the Vedas along with the Upanishads and so on, if the person has studied it properly, this curiosity would naturally come. Ananta sthirapala Brahma jignasa hi anantara bhavini. That is what comes next. Okay, what is this Brahma jignasa? It is nothing but the curiosity to learn about Brahman. Brahmano jignasa, Brahma jignasa. So he says, the curiosity is what is generated. But why does he say curiosity? The Vedas are already supposed to teach about Brahman. The Upanishads are already supposed to teach about Brahman. After learning the Upanishads, why would there be a curiosity to learn about Brahman if I have already learned about the Brahman from the Upanishads? And there are several reasons. Firstly, Brahman by nature is infinite. Brahman cannot be completely described even by the Vedas. They only make an attempt to explain. Secondly, you cannot have 100% guarantee of the authenticity of your understanding of the Vedas, because the statements of the Vedas are tricky. You may have studied it, but they would still be tricky. You may not understand the concept properly. Let me give you a simple example. Arjuna had studied the Vedas, yet Krishna gave him the same teachings of the Vedas in the form of Bhagavad Gita. Whatever is said in Bhagavad Gita is already said in the Vedas. Yet Krishna had to impart that knowledge to him because Arjuna did not have clarity in spite of having studied the Vedas. Likewise, we see in Mahabharata that Yudhishthira is taught by Bhishma several concepts that are already told in the Vedas. Yudhishthira had studied the Vedas, but he still did not have 100% clarity. And the clarity and depth were provided by Bhishma to him. So, studying is fine, but getting 100% clarity is different. It is to provide that clarity that the Brahma Sutras exist. So, they are very, very important. I am not going to explain the entirety of the Sri Bhashya. That is not our intention. If we try to explain also, it will not be just because there is way too much. It is very, very, very huge. Instead, we will look at the structure of the Brahma Sutras. And then look at the topics the first few topics that are discussed in the Brahma Sutras, discussed as per the Sri Bhashya. So, okay, there is a desire to learn about Brahman. How do I understand this word Brahman? After I learn everything about Brahman, that's a different thing. But right now I have a desire to learn about Brahman. I cannot even get a desire to learn about Brahman if I do not have a basic idea of what Brahman is. If I do not have even a basic idea about somebody, let us say Swatiji, who is helping me to conduct this session, if I do not even know that she is the person who is hosting this, will I be able to conduct the class? It is not possible. When I know that she is the host of the room, then with her help, I can share the screen, conduct the class, get the session recorded, everything. So, in reality, the most important contribution in this class is being done by her. But if I do not know about her, then all that I have studied is going to be useless because I would not be able to conduct the session. In the same way, the person who has studied the Vedas, even after studying the Upanishads, if such a person does not have even a basic idea of Brahman, this Brahma Jignasa will not happen. Some other Jignasa will come. So for that reason, you should know what that Brahman is what is the meaning of Brahman that is being referred to here. Some basic idea you need. That basic idea is presented by Bhagavad Ramanuja. He says, Brahma Shabdena cha स्वभावतो निरस्त निखिल दोषो नवधिकातिशय संख्येय कल्याण गुणगणः पुरुषोत्तमोऽभिधीयते. Brahma Shabdena cha, by the word Brahma, what is meant? Svabhavatah, by nature. So, what is being referred to by the Brahma Shabda? That which is by nature nirasta nikhila dosha. One who is void of every single bad quality. Dosha means bad quality. There are plenty of bad qualities. Correct? How many bad qualities do we have? I don't know. I can't even count how many bad qualities I have. I knew that excess walking is bad for my health, but I still walked. Now what is happening? My feet are paining. What dosha do I have? I have a dosha called stupidity. I have another dosha. It is called feet pain. So on one side, I have a problem with my body. On the other side, I have a problem with my mind. But stupidity is just one of the several different types of problems. Many times, we are bound by bad qualities. Like what? Kama, Krodha, Mada, Matsarya, Lobha, Moha. So many times, we are driven by desire. I have only 3,000 rupees with me. I am going outside. I am seeing this beautiful cake in a bakery. And I'm thinking, tomorrow is my birthday. It would be nice if I could eat that cake. I go inside. I ask for the price. That fellow says, this is a special cake. It costs 30,000 rupees. If I am stupid enough to buy the cake, the problem is not just stupidity, it is also desire. I had a desire. I desired the cake so much that I took a stupid decision. Correct? So, although the decision was stupid, behind that stupidity was a form of desire. Of course, I'm just giving a random example. Please do not ask me which cake is sold for 30,000 rupees. The point is, many times, in fact, 100% of the times, our wrong actions and decisions in life, they are the results of either ignorance or sometimes with ignorance and sometimes without ignorance, the other bad qualities, desire, anger, greed, and so on, jealousy. Plenty of people have these kinds of problems. My neighbor has a car, I have only a bike. That will not do. I have to compulsorily buy a car. When I was in NCR, this happened. One person told me, "Oh, you have no problem. You wear such simple clothes and you don't care what people think about you." But I cannot live that way. I am a married person. I have a wife and I have a daughter. I am living in a posh locality. Everybody in my society will judge me based on what I wear. I cannot wear simple clothes like you. I cannot keep wearing the same clothes again and again after 2-3 days. I have to buy new clothes. I have to buy a new car once in every 2 years. I have to buy a new television once in every 2 years. The list that he started giving me was so scary. I started wondering if he would save any money at all for food, because he did not mention food. But that is the way people are. When others judge, they will change accordingly. So many problems are there. If there is an entity that is of the nature of Ananta Stira Phala, that can grant us Ananta Stira Phala, that Phala itself also being auspicious, of course. How should the entity be? The entity itself should be flawless. It should not have any problem at all. Correct? Just like how only a rich man, a person with money, can lend money. In the same way, only a person with no fault, no problem could lead us to a situation with no problem, no fault, no flaw. As we are seeking that perfect state, as we are seeking the best possible state of existence, we seek that entity which is already in that state and is capable of giving us that state as well. That is Brahman. Nirasta Nikhila Doshaha. Then, okay, it does not have bad qualities, but what if it has no quality at all? Some people said Brahman is something that has no quality at all. It has no attribute at all. Bhagavad Ramanuja asks, if it has no quality at all, what can it give you? Can it give you moksha? If you say yes, then the ability to give you moksha is a quality of Brahman. If you say no, it cannot give me moksha, then the inability to give you moksha will be a quality of Brahman. No matter how you look at it, it is a quality. It should have a quality. It cannot be void of qualities. When you say void of qualities, that itself is a quality, right? The quality of not having a quality. Circular reasoning, that wouldn't work. Therefore, you cannot say void of quality. But some people still said void of qualities. So if you say it has no quality at all, then does it exist? Because if it exists, existence will also be a quality. If you say it does not exist, there is no point in seeking it. Suppose you say the only quality that it has is that it exists, then seeking that would be useless. Imagine a microorganism. The only thing about the microorganism is that it exists. It does nothing else. It exists, that's all. It doesn't eat, it doesn't sleep, it doesn't multiply, doesn't do anything, doesn't move. Just chase there. How good is it? It is as good as a non-living thing, right? A living microorganism, which does absolutely nothing, is as good as a non-living thing. Why take microorganism? Take even humans. A human who does absolutely nothing in life, no eating, no sleeping, no moving, nothing, that human would be a statue and nothing else, right? That is as good as being non-living. What is the point of life if you do nothing with life? And if you are non-living, it means you are useless. We call non-living things as useful because we have the ability to use them. I would call my laptop as non-living, but I would call it useful because I am able to use it. Can you use Brahman in that way? If it is useful, then usefulness will be a quality. How do you use it? Do you use Brahman? Is it like a key with which you open a lock? No. On the contrary, you are the one who is locked, and it is Brahman who releases you. It is Brahman which has the key. You don't have the key. The Brahman has the key, and the Brahman releases you from the lock. What is that lock? It is the lock of samsara. We are trapped in samsara. We are imprisoned. And it is Brahman that can save us from it, from that prison. But why will Brahman save us? If it is non-living, it will not do anything. If it is living and still doing nothing, it is as good as non-living. If it is living and also helping, how should it be? What if it is partial? What if it helps random people? What if it helps evil people as well? Who should be helped? Good people should be helped, right? We are talking about karma phala. So, one who is good should be helped. One who is bad, maybe the perfect help for the bad person is being taught how to be good, being taught to become a good person. The Brahman has to do that. Otherwise, there is no hope for humanity. There is no hope for the universe because we are driven by bad qualities. We are not perfect. We may have some good qualities, but we also have some bad qualities. It is because of our bad qualities that we suffer. Even when we have good qualities, the results that we get are temporary. The results are good. When we show good qualities, the results are good. We get pleasure. But that pleasure is also limited. So how should Parabrahman be? Parabrahman, which is capable of granting us perfection, should itself be perfect. Otherwise, it would be hypocrisy. Therefore, Bhagavad Ramanuja says, Brahma Shabdena cha svabhavataha Nirasta nikhila dosho anavadhika atishaya sankhyeya kalyana gunaganaha. Nirasta nikhila dosha. Then anavadhika atishaya asankhyeya kalyana gunaganaha. Anavadhika means you cannot have any adhika to it. Countless. You cannot cross it that way. Limitless. Atishaya. Asankhyeya. Asankhyeya means limitless. Anavadhika means limitless. How are they different? Anavadhika refers to the magnitude. Asankhyeya refers to the number of qualities. So, Kalyana Guna means auspicious quality. Kalyana Guna Gana means groups of auspicious qualities. Asankhyeya Kalyana Guna Gana means infinite groups of auspicious qualities. Anavadhika Asankhyeya Kalyana Guna Gana means infinite groups of auspicious qualities, each of which is itself of infinite magnitude. This is in which way? Atishaya. It is not what you see elsewhere. This is the highest of the highest, the best of the best. I could have limitless auspicious quality in a different way. I could show compassion to the entire earth by giving each person 1 rupee. I could also show compassion to the entire earth by giving each person 1 million rupees. Both are compassion, but both are different. To be able to show compassion to the highest degree, to the maximum degree possible, and to have as the maximum degree infinity, that is not something that you would be able to expect from anybody. The only entity that you can expect it from is the Parabrahman. Bhagavad Ramanuja could have still called it as one with infinite auspicious qualities. But when you say infinity, it's just a word. You do not really understand it that well. Bhagavad Ramanuja says, you cannot count no matter how much you try, because it has infinity inside of infinity. What do you mean by infinity inside of infinity? Imagine a hotel. A hotel that has infinite floors. In each floor, it has infinite rooms. Then imagine another hotel which has only one floor, the ground floor. On the ground floor, it has infinite rooms. Which hotel is bigger? A person who knows basic mathematics would think infinity is infinity. How could there be any difference between the two? But mathematics in reality says that one infinity could very well be bigger than the other. In our case, one infinity is indeed bigger than the other, right? The hotel with infinite floors and each floor having infinite rooms is bigger, definitely, than the hotel with just one floor but infinite rooms. It is easy for us to visualize. We cannot visualize infinity, but we can understand how it would be bigger. Now imagine if each one of the hotel room is also having infinite space, how would it be? 3 levels of infinity. One level is that of the room. Each room is infinitely large. The second is the number of rooms inside a floor. There are infinite rooms in a floor. The third is the number of floors. There are infinite floors. 3D infinity. That is how Bhagavad Ramanuja is describing Brahman. Anavadhika Tishaya Asankhyeya Kalyana Guna Ganaha. Anavadhika Asankhyeya, and then he says Gana also. So, this is how you should imagine Parabrahman to be. It is that limitless. Okay, but is there any other thing that has been said about that Parabrahman? Yes, there is something called Niravakasha Linga. Niravakasha Linga means you are having a quality that very specifically refers to a particular entity. In the context of Parabrahman, there is one such word that has been used. This word is Purushottama. Purusha by itself could sometimes refer to humans as well, right? Male human is also called Purusha in Sanskrit. We have Purusha Sukta. There, the ordinary male human is not described. That Purusha is Parama Purusha. But who is that Parama Purusha? Purushottama. Uttama, implying superlative. So the superlative Purusha, Purushottama, that Purushottama is Nirastha Nikhila Doshona Vadhikatishaya Sankhya Kalyana Gunagana. That being is Brahman, the Parabrahman, who is being referred to in Atato Brahma Jignasa. When we say Brahma Sutras, that is the Brahman that we are referring to. How do you understand this? On what basis are you saying, talking about so much infinity? The word is Brahma. Bhagavad Ramanuja goes to the etymology. He says, Brahma comes from Brihat. Brihatva means greatness. So, for you to understand the full extent of meaning of the word Brahman, you should think of greatness in its complete sense. Sarvatra Brihatva Guna Yogena hi Brahma Shabdaha. Everywhere, implying in all aspects, it would have Brihatva Guna, that is the quality of greatness. That is how it is going to be. Okay. This greatness, this fame that it is having, how is it? How are you to understand that? Brihatvam cha swarupena gunaischa yatra anavadhikatishayam sosya mukhyorthaha. He says, this Brihatva, by swarupa, by the very nature, and by guna, swarupena gunaischa, by qualities. by nature and by qualities, where it is infinitely auspicious. That will become the real meaning of the word Brahma. What about the others? This is a concept in Sanskrit. When a word is used, you should understand the full potency of the word. The complete potency of the word is its real meaning. Any partial potency of the word would not be the real meaning. We call it Bhantva Prayoga. My Venerable Acharya used to give an example. Cut service. When you say that you are, let us say, catching a train. I am catching a train from Chennai to Mumbai. But the train, what is the duty of the train? The duty of the train is to go to Mumbai. It is some Mumbai Express, let us say. What the purpose of the train is by nature to take me to Mumbai. Whoever sits inside it, it will take to Mumbai. If I decide to get down at Bangalore, that means I am using the train which has the potential to go till Mumbai. I am using that train, but I am using it for what? For going only till Bangalore. Does this reduce the ability of the train in any way? No, it does not. The train has the ability to go to Mumbai and it will go to Mumbai. I am getting down at Bangalore. I am using it only till Bangalore, till Bengaluru. I shouldn't call it Bangalore. So, how does it work in Sanskrit? A word should be understood in terms of its complete potency. If you decide to use it in partial potency, that is your decision. Therefore, when you say greatness, ideally, you should imply infinite greatness. That is the real meaning of greatness. Greatness means greatness. Whichever quality you bring there, greatness you have to see. If it is inferior in any way, the word greatness cannot be applied. Right? So, greatness is by definition of infinite magnitude. That is its original nature. Yet, for our own practical reasons, we use the word greatness to refer to limited things. He is a great leader, we might call somebody. There might have been an even greater leader in the past. There might be an even greater leader in the future. When we compare all the three, I will say, no, the present one is not so great. I have seen people who are even better. Right? So when compared to something greater, greatness is no longer treated as great. The stars give us light at night. But in daylight, what do? When the sun is there to give me light, the other stars become useless. The other stars are still giving light during the day, but I am not able to see them because of the brightness of the sun. In the same way, the original meaning of light is the fullest extent of light. That's all. Wherever you see, there should be no darkness. If there is darkness, there cannot be light. Yet, we talk about dim light, candle light, and so on. 0-watt bulb light. What have we done? We have taken partially. So, the original essence of the word Brahman, we are at core philosophy now, core of Vedanta. Vedanta revolves around the word Brahman. Brahma Jignasa is what gives Vedanta. As a topic. So, Brahman is by definition infinite. Brihatvancha, Swarupena, by nature, Gunaischa, and by qualities. Yatra anavadhika atishayam. Saha asya mukhyorthaha. So, where it is of infinite greatness, infinite, what do you say, high nature, infinitely high nature, that is the direct meaning, mukhyaha arthaha. Mukhya artha means primary meaning. So the primary meaning of Brahman is one that is limitless in its nature and qualities. Such a Sarveshwara eva. Who is that Brahman? None other than Sarveshwara, the one who controls all of us. That is how the Vedas have explained. Not anybody else, not me or you or some stone. It is the Lord of all, the supreme controller of all. That is what the Vedas have said. So the Vedas are theistic in nature. The Vedas do not teach atheism. There are people who say Vedas also teach atheism. Have you seen Nasadiya Sukta? But if you really go and study Nasadiya Sukta properly, you will understand that even there it does not preach atheism. It does not preach atheism. True knowers of the Veda would know, they will tell you that it does not preach atheism even there. So, Brahman is not some entity just like that. Oh, hi, bro. I cannot say that. I can if I want to, but I cannot limit it to somebody so low to be called a brother. It is a supreme being. Therefore, Ataha, Brahma Shabdaha, Tatraiva Mukhyavrattaha. Therefore, the word Brahman is actually referring to that entity, the supreme being. That is what it is really referring to. What if it refers to something else? We do see in the Vedic scriptures the word Brahman sometimes used not in the context of Parabrahman but something else. If it is used in the context of anything else, that is not its original meaning. Right? Like the original train being one that goes to Mumbai and me getting down at Bangalore, that is not going to make it a Chennai Bangalore train. So, tasmad anyatra tadgunalesha yogat aupacharikaha. Gunalesha, a part of its quality. If you take any other meaning of the word Brahman, one of the meanings of the word Brahman is Brahmana. But the Brahmana is just a Varna. It is not supreme. There is nothing so great about it. So, if you are using it in any other meaning, any meaning apart from the supreme being, the word Brahman, that would be aupacharika, that would be metaphorical. So, this is the teaching of Bhagavad Ramanuja. Anekartha kalpana yogat Bhagavad Shabdavat. I wanted to discuss the various chapters of the Brahma Sutras and then get into the summary of the first few chapters. But right now, for us to even go to the chapters of the Brahma Sutras, we need to understand what Brahman means. Right? If you do not understand what Brahman itself means, what is the point of discussing Brahma Sutra? Therefore, although the original agenda was as shown in the slides, we ended up discussing the concept of Brahman as presented by Vishishtadvaita. Remember, this is the concept of Brahman as presented by Vishishtadvaita. Oh, does it mean that Brahman is presented in a totally different way by others? No. Nobody can be totally different from this, because there are a lot of fundamental truths here that people cannot disagree with. The best that you can do is take some of the words of Bhagavad Ramanuja figuratively. Like when he says, Parabrahman is Sarveshwara, that would be taken figuratively by the Advaiti. That is all. Why figuratively? Because Saguna Brahman will be Sarveshwara for the Advaiti. So Vedanta by itself has several schools that are close to each other, yet they are also different from each other, which is why we have so many different names: Advaita, Vishishtadvaita, Dvaita, and so on. So, I will conclude by ending the paragraph where he explained about Brahman. Anekartha kalpana yogat Bhagavat Shabdavat. Anekartha kalpana yogat. You could have an imagination that the word Brahman has many different meanings. But you should not think, oh, it has so many different meanings. It could mean this here, it could mean there, something else there. That is not the procedure. You should understand that there is one primary meaning and all the other meanings are secondary meanings. The primary meaning of Brahma is the Supreme Being only. This is the teaching. Like what? Can you give an example? Bhagavad Ramanuja says, yes, I can give you an example. It is like Bhagavat Shabda. What is that? There is a word called Bhagavan. This word Bhagavan is explained by Parashara to Maitreya in Vishnu Purana. A very beautiful explanation. He says the original meaning of Bhagavan is the Supreme Being. Yet, for the sake of giving respect to certain other entities, we address them also as Bhagavan. Like Bhagavan Vasishtha. Vasishtha is not Bhagavan, but we would say Bhagavan Vasishtha out of respect for sage Vasishtha. Bhagavan Valmiki. Valmiki is not Bhagavan, but out of respect, we would call Valmiki as Bhagavan. Why? Because Valmiki would have some auspicious qualities of Bhagavan. Vasishtha would have some auspicious qualities of Bhagavan that would be clearly visible, much more than what the others have. But because it is only a portion of what Bhagavan has, you would take it as Aupacharika. It is a secondary meaning. It is a metaphorical meaning. It does not really mean that Valmiki is Sakshat Bhagavan. Hence, Tadguna Lesha Yogat Aupacharikaha. Anekartha Kalpana Yogat Bhagavat Shabdavat. In this manner, Bhagavad Ramanuja is explaining the word Brahman by giving an example of the word Bhagavan. Remember the word Bhagavan. What did Parashara say? What did the great sage Parashara say in Vishnu Purana? He said Bhagavan, in reality the word refers to the Almighty. But for the sake of respect, we use it to refer to others as well. In the same way, you should treat this word as well. This is the teaching. If there is any question, feel free to ask. If there is no question, we will conclude today's class here. This is the beginning of Jignasa Adhikarana. The first sutra of Brahma Sutras falls under Jignasa Adhikarana. That is the topic of curiosity. Athato Brahma Jignasa only. That is where we are at. We have not finished it because the word Brahman is very important for us to understand. But once we understand it, I will quickly take you through Jignasa Adhikarana as a summary and then present Janmadhyasya Yata, the second sutra, which is also part of the same Adhikarana, but the second sutra of Jignasa Adhikarana. One way to understand Brahman has been presented here through etymology and logic by Bhagavad Ramanuja. He has also used the word Sarveshvara, Purushottama, and so on. How do you understand that Purushottama, Sarveshvara? The second sutra will tell that. So we will complete the first sutra and go to the next sutra in the next class. And then we are not going to look at every single sutra in such detail, but certain things need to be looked at as they are very important. The whole concept of Vedanta revolves around Brahman. If you remove Brahman, there will be no Vedanta. Therefore, we are taking so much time. Kama and Lobha are not all. See, Lobha is when I am jealous that somebody else is having something. Kama would be desire. See, if I want to become rich, I don't have to look at my neighbor. Maybe I am living in a slum. I am a very poor person with no money. Nobody around me also has money. Everybody is beggar. Yet, I have the desire. I want to live in luxury. I want to live like a king. That would be Kama. Now, if I am seeing that my neighbor is rich and I am poor, I am jealous of my neighbor. My neighbor is rich, therefore I also want to be rich. How could he be so rich when I am so poor? When I start thinking that way, at that time it will be Lobha. I hope you understand the difference, Janatji. The second question that I see has been asked by Saxena ji. You stated that the karma phala we get is only for a limited period for the karma we performed. Then we need to do to get a benefit in a long life. Yes, that is true. If I do some karma, proportional to that karma, I will get karma. If I give 10% of my wealth to somebody, as some poor person, or to lots of poor people, let us say, as charity, in such a case, what I would get is going to be proportional to that only. I cannot get something in a disproportional way. If I get karma phala in a disproportional way, then it would imply that Parabrahman is faulty. For what I have done, based on what I have done, he decides what I deserve. What I deserve will be proportional to what I have done. And whatever we do is limited. Correct? Whatever we do is limited, no matter how many times we do it. The number of times is also limited. The magnitude is also limited. Then how can we expect a result that is infinitely big? In Sankhya Karika, Ishvara Krishna argues, you are saying that if you perform Jyotishtoma, you will get Swarga. But what is that Swarga? You are going to be there for some amount of time and after that fall back down into rebirth. What is the point? Swarga is not eternal. Therefore, performing yajnas and going to Swarga cannot be the ultimate aim of life. It cannot be the ultimate goal, ultimate target. In that way, Ishvara Krishna, when summarizing Nirishvara Sankhya, he explains. It is a fact what he says. So we have to keep doing. You did some punya, for that you got the phala. What about after that? After that you have to do more punya to get more phala, more punya, more phala, more punya, more phala. That is how it will work. We keep doing karma all the time, even when we do not do consciously. I may consciously give in donation once a month. Unconsciously, when I see a beggar, I might give once a week. But subconsciously, I will also be doing 100 wrong things. We get the results of all of them, proportional to each one of them. We have done so much karma, and we are getting the phala for all of it, one by one. None of the phalas that we get is eternal. The only phala that can ever be eternal is moksha. And technically, moksha cannot be called a karma phala, because you have to renounce karmas. Sarva dharman parityajya. You see the bhashyas, Vaishnava bhashyas, they will say, by dharman, you should understand it as karman. Even Shankaracharya explains that way. But does it mean you do nothing? No, no, no. It means you sacrifice the karma phala. Karma phala bhogan. That is how you get moksha. I hope that answers your question. I hope that clarifies. What is the consequence of krodha on karma? Well, anger leads to blindness. You do some wrong thing out of blindness. When the anger is not justified, see, when it is justified, we don't call it krodha. When it is justified and channelized, we call it kopa. But when it is not justified, you get blind in anger. You get so angry. Chanakya was so angry when he was insulted by Nanda. What did Chanakya do? He walked by. He slipped a little. He looked at the ground. There was a small sapling. What did he do? He plucked the sapling out. The plant died. He plucked it out. It died, obviously. You uproot a plant, it dies. Tiny plant. He uprooted it. What did he do after that? He planted it upside down. Can a plant ever live upside down? It cannot. Once uprooted itself, it dies. After that, you are planting it upside down. The leaves underground and roots above the ground. How will it live? It cannot live. Can it live? It cannot. He did not stop there also. He poured hot water on it. What happens when you pour hot water on roots? The roots will wither, the roots will die. Was his reaction towards the plant proportional? It was not. Was his karma based on krodha? Yes. Was it punya karma? No. Krodha led him to do papa karma. So angry. I will so utterly destroy you. I will uproot you, then I will plant you upside down, then I will pour steaming water. That level of anger. So that anger leads to disproportionate reactions. Even at times when the cause itself is righteous. Sometimes the cause itself is unrighteous. But even when the cause is righteous, the reason for your anger might actually be genuine. But if you show anger disproportionately, you will end up doing papa karma. That is the consequence of krodha on karma. Vedanta is the ultimate teaching of the Veda, the final teaching of the Veda, the last few chapters of the Veda. Take it that way. All of these three are valid meanings. And depending on the context when we speak. Sometimes when we say Vedanta, we imply Upanishad. Sometimes when Upanishad is at the end of the Vedas. Sometimes when we say Vedanta, we refer to the concept, the philosophical concept that is taught by the Upanishad. Sometimes when we say Vedanta, we refer to Prasthanatrayi, that is the Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, and the Brahma Sutras, all of which teach the same thing. They teach the same concept, therefore we take all the three together and refer to them as a whole. Sometimes when we say Vedanta, we refer to a school of thought, any particular school that has interpreted the Upanishads in a specific way. That is also called Vedanta. For example, Advaita Vedanta, Vishishtadvaita Vedanta. What does Advaita Vedanta mean? It means Vedanta as per Advaita. Advaita is a school of philosophy. So Vedanta as taught by the Advaita school of philosophy is called Advaita Vedanta. In that way. When someone feeds a beggar, is there a transfer of punya from the beggar to the feeder? Not necessarily, but when the beggar gives blessing, yes. When the beggar is happy, and he wishes your welfare, at that point of time you might get. But for that, the beggar should also have punya. What crimes that person has done to become a beggar is not known to you. Whether as a beggar also he is living a good life or he is just wasting his life in using all the money that you give to drink and waste his time, you don't know. I said kopa. Kopa is different from krodha. Kopa also means anger. Krodha also means anger. But technically, one is channelized anger and one is not. One is blind anger. Okay, thank you so much for attending. Shri Vatram Shakal Shodhi Kostubasya Shivas Raghav Grostanim Tata Shivya Vapi Bhutamatam Nidhanam Puves Dharvidum Kurma Karakhyam Kavita Simhaya Kalyana Gunishadini Shrimate Venkateshaya Vedanta Gurave Namaha.